After his divorce left him emotionally drained, Michael finally caught a break when he won a small lottery prize. Just enough for a down payment on a modest home with the one luxury he'd always dreamed of, a backyard swimming pool. The listing agent had mysteriously avoided mentioning why the previous owners had sold so hastily, dropping hints about challenging neighbors before quickly changing the subject. Michael dismissed these warnings, enchanted by the crystal blue water that promised peaceful refuge. As he signed the final papers, he caught sight of an older woman peering through blinds in the adjacent house, her silhouette vanishing the moment he waved hello. Michael spent his first weekend at the new house scrubbing the pool's neglected tile and skimming leaves from the surface. The previous owners had left in such a hurry they'd abandoned half-empty bottles of pool chemicals, each meticulously labeled with purchase dates and handwritten testing schedules. Even stranger was the laminated pool activity log he found hidden beneath the pump cover, documenting each swim with timestamps and water temperature readings. Michael laughed it off as someone's excessive dedication to pool maintenance. That night, he celebrated with his first swim, floating peacefully under the stars with a cold beer balanced on his chest. The water embraced him like an old friend, washing away years of stress. He'd almost drifted off when the distinct sound of a camera shutter clicked somewhere beyond the fence line. Michael sat up, water cascading off his shoulders, and called out, "Hello? Someone there?" Only cricket chirps answered him, but he couldn't shake the sensation of being watched. The following morning, a manila envelope waited on his doorstep. Inside, he found a printout of municipal water usage regulations, swimming pool ordinances, and a neighborhood quiet hours schedule, none of which appeared official. Most unsettling was the handwritten note at the bottom. Previous owners understood proper pool protocol. Compliance will be monitored. Michael crumpled the papers, tossing them into his recycling bin, but found himself glancing toward the neighboring house, where floral curtains twitched closed as he looked up. Michael's first official introduction to Diane Webster came at 7:13 a.m. on a Saturday as he sleepily collected his newspaper. She appeared at their property line, clutching a binder labeled "Neighborhood Compliance" in meticulous calligraphy. "Your pool pump runs exactly 12 minutes past the noise ordinance curfew," she announced without a greeting. When Michael explained he hadn't even figured out how to operate the pump yet, she snapped several photos of his confused expression. "Documentation is key," she explained with an unsettling smile, dropping a 27-page welcome neighbor packet on his doorstep that contained highlighted HOA rules, except, as Michael would later discover, their neighborhood had no HOA. Still in his bathrobe, coffee growing cold in his hand, Michael flipped through the packet while Diane hovered expectantly. Each page featured color-coded tabs and post-it notes marked with timestamps of alleged violations for his 3 days of residency. "Page 17 covers acceptable swimwear materials," Diane pointed out, her fingernail tapping a paragraph that appeared to be printed in a different font than the rest of the document. "The previous owners had a laminated swimwear swatch book I provided. Would you like one as well?" Michael's diplomatic response about reviewing everything later didn't satisfy Diane. She produced a tape measure from her pocket. "While I'm here, I should verify your fence height. The Hendersons, lovely couple, shame about their sudden departure, allowed me weekly measurements to ensure compliance." When Michael politely but firmly suggested this wouldn't be necessary, Diane's smile hardened into something that didn't reach her eyes. "I've maintained neighborhood standards for 27 years, she informed him, jotting something in her binder. "Did your real estate agent disclose the pool noise complaints?" "No." "Interesting omission." As she turned to leave, she added casually, "My security cameras have excellent night vision, by the way. I noticed your after-hours swim yesterday. The footage has been archived for reference." Michael stood frozen, coffee now cold, as Diane marched back to her house where he now noticed small cameras peeked from beneath every eave, all seemingly angled toward his backyard. The neighborhood summer block party revealed Diane's reputation when 3 separate neighbors whispered pool police warnings to Michael. He laughed until one longtime resident showed him cell phone footage of Diane measuring the previous homeowner's swimming trunks with a ruler to ensure they met her decency standards. That evening, as Michael enjoyed a solitary twilight swim, floodlights suddenly illuminated his pool like a prison yard. Squinting upward, he spotted Diane on a stepladder, adjusting what appeared to be stadium-grade lighting pointed directly at his property. "Just ensuring nighttime compliance," she called down cheerfully, her clipboard reflecting in the glare. Michael's attempts to defuse the situation with neighborly diplomacy backfired spectacularly. His peace offering, a plate of homemade cookies and an invitation to use his pool anytime, triggered what his other neighbors now referred to as the incident. Diane appeared at his door within hours, cookies returned on the same plate, now accompanied by a spiral-bound presentation titled "Health Code Violations in Home Kitchens," a photographic study. More disturbing was the pool usage waiver she drafted, a 14-page legal document requiring his signature on each page, indemnifying her against everything from excessive chlorine exposure to water-based emotional distress. When Michael installed modest patio furniture near the pool, he returned from work to find laminated photos of his backyard taped to his front door, before and after shots with the furniture circled in angry red marker. The attached note read, "Unauthorized aesthetic changes visible from adjacent property. Impact study required." That night, the distinct sound of a camera drone humming overhead forced him to retreat indoors from his planned barbecue. The final straw came during Michael's morning swim routine. Completing his laps, he surfaced to find Diane standing at the pool's edge in a fluorescent safety vest, clipboard in hand, a stopwatch around her neck. She had somehow entered his backyard while he was underwater. "Your swimming creates wave patterns that impact fence structural integrity," she informed him, jotting notes while demonstrating the proper low-impact stroke technique previous owners had apparently employed. When Michael, treading water in shock, asked how she'd gotten into his locked yard, Diane merely smiled. "I have access protocols for emergency compliance verification." The locksmith arrived that afternoon to change every lock on Michael's property. Michael's date night with a promising hinge match imploded when Diane's drone hovered 6 feet above his poolside dinner setup. Is that a camera drone wearing a tiny hall monitor sash?" His date whispered before making a hasty exit. The following day, Michael discovered elaborately illustrated pool violation citations tucked into his mailbox, documenting infractions like excessive splashing and unauthorized floating device. Standard pool noodle exceeds regulation diameter by 0.3 inches. When he installed privacy screens, he received a certified letter expressing concern about suspicious concealment activities, copied to the local police department and, inexplicably, the Department of Agriculture. The psychological toll of constant surveillance began to affect Michael's daily life. He found himself whispering poolside even when alone. He developed a habit of swimming underwater to avoid the sensation of being watched, holding his breath until his lungs burned. His colleagues noticed his distraction at work after Diane began texting him hourly updates on his pool's chemical balance. Somehow she had acquired his private number and, more disturbingly, was testing his water while he was away. Michael's breaking point came when he discovered a small waterproof camera disguised as a decorative pool drain cover, equipment he certainly hadn't installed. After fishing it out with a net, he found property of DW Neighborhood Watch engraved on its underside. When confronted by text, Diane responded with a 79-message thread explaining her legal right to monitor contaminant levels in adjacent water features and demanding the immediate return of her environmental testing device. That weekend, Michael hired a privacy consultant who discovered 3 additional hidden cameras around his pool area, a directional microphone aimed at his patio from Diane's attic window, and most alarmingly, evidence that she had installed a remote access module on his pool filtration system that allowed her to activate his pool lights and adjust temperature settings from her home computer. The consultant, a former security specialist, whispered that in 20 years of business, he'd never seen civilian surveillance this extensive outside of a custody dispute. Michael filed his first police report that afternoon, only to discover Diane had already filed 3 of her own against him for harassment through deliberate pool compliance evasion, psychological distress caused by unauthorized swimming patterns, and water feature mismanagement with intent to devalue adjacent property. Michael's sister Sarah arrived with her twins for their weekend visit, excited to escape their apartment's summer heat. As the children's delighted squeals filled the air, Diane's surveillance escalated to comical proportions. She appeared with binoculars, a directional microphone, and what appeared to be a water testing kit attached to a fishing rod. When Sarah's son cannonballed into the deep end, Diane gasped audibly and sprinted inside. 15 minutes later, 3 police cruisers screeched to a halt outside, responding to reports of potential child endangerment, unauthorized pool use, and suspected water theft. The responding officers recognized Diane's address before Michael even opened his door. "Ms. Webster," one sighed. "That's our 3rd call this week." Officer Rodriguez explained they were responding to a frantic 911 call reporting unidentified minors engaged in reckless aquatic activity and possible pool contamination requiring hazmat intervention. The second officer struggled to maintain his professional demeanor as he recited Diane's claim that she'd detected unauthorized pH levels through remote sensing equipment. When Michael introduced the unidentified minors as his niece and nephew, both competitive junior swimmers, the officers exchanged knowing glances. "Sir, I hate to ask this, but do you mind if we just visually verify your pool area?" Officer Rodriguez asked quietly. "It'll help us close this report without further escalation." Michael led them to the backyard where Sarah was applying sunscreen to the children. As they reached the pool, a sudden flash caught their attention. Diane was photographing the entire interaction from her second-floor window, her telephoto lens glinting in the sun. What transformed the situation from irritating to serious was what happened next. As the officers were apologizing for the disturbance, Michael's niece called out, "Uncle Mike, what's that lady doing with our backpacks?" Everyone turned to see Diane crouched by the fence, using a grabber tool typically meant for litter collection to drive the children's backpacks toward her yard. When spotted, rather than retreating, she called out, "Conducting safety inspection for prohibited pool items." Officer Martinez immediately walked to the fence, where a reluctant Diane produced a self-created neighborhood safety inspector badge. While the first officer gently questioned Diane about tampering with others' property, Officer Rodriguez pulled Michael aside. "This isn't normal neighbor dispute territory anymore, sir. We've had 17 calls from Ms. Webster about your property in 3 weeks. I strongly recommend documenting everything and considering a restraining order." As they spoke, Sarah discovered her phone missing from her pool bag. The children's cheerful afternoon was forgotten as they watched Diane being formally cautioned about filing false reports and interfering with personal property, a surreal poolside scene punctuated by the constant click of Diane's camera from behind her kitchen window. The 911 incident catalyzed unexpected neighborhood solidarity. Michael returned from work to find an impromptu pool party in his backyard. Neighbors he'd never met arrived with coolers, towels, and stories of their own Diane encounters. Mrs. Abernathy from 2 doors down revealed her bird feeder had been measured weekly for 7 years. Mr. Liu brought surveillance footage of Diane photographing his recycling bin contents. The most startling revelation came from retired Judge Wilson, who explained that Diane's obsession with the property stemmed from her failed attempt to purchase it herself, outbid by Michael by merely $1,200. As the impromptu gathering continued, Diane documented every second from her window, her camera flash creating a bizarre strobe effect as the sun set. The Diane Webster files became the evening's entertainment as neighbors shared their experiences. Sandra Patel displayed a 3-ring binder of cease and desist letters she'd received for unauthorized garden gnome placement in her own front yard. The Johnsons, a young couple with a newborn, confessed they now conducted stealth barbecues inside their garage after Diane submitted smoke particles from their grill to an independent lab for carcinogen testing. The gathering transformed from venting session to strategy meeting when Emily Chen, a local attorney, arrived with appetizers and legal advice. "This isn't just annoying, it's harassment, invasion of privacy, and potentially stalking," she explained, setting up her laptop to show everyone the applicable statutes. Michael was stunned to learn that Diane's behavior met the legal threshold for harassment in at least 7 different ways. Neighbors began pooling their evidence: photographs, videos, written citations, and even a bizarre handmade violation doll Diane had left on the kindergarten teacher's porch, festooned with pins marking dress code infractions. The night took an unexpected turn when 87-year-old Walter Green shuffled forward with a weathered photo album. "Been here since '73, he announced, adjusting his thick glasses. "Diane wasn't always like this." The photos revealed a younger Diane leading community cleanup efforts, organizing fundraisers for the local school, even winning Neighbor of the Year before a bitter dispute with the previous Homeowners Association leadership. "Something broke in her after they rejected her pool proposal 20 years ago," Walter explained. "She wanted an identical pool to the one on your property. When they denied her permit on water table concerns, she made it her mission to ensure no one else could enjoy theirs either." As midnight approached, the unlikely coalition formalized Operation Pool Freedom, complete with a shared cloud folder for evidence collection and a neighborhood text alert system for Diane sightings. Michael felt a complex mix of emotions: relief at finding allies, discomfort at Diane's obvious mental health struggles, and determination to reclaim his peace. As the last neighbors departed, Judge Wilson placed a fatherly hand on Michael's shoulder. "Document everything," he advised, "and perhaps consider a pool cover, the reflective kind. Those surveillance cameras don't work so well when they're blinded." The spontaneous solidarity of strangers turned friends gave Michael his first night of sound sleep since moving in, despite Diane's floodlights blazing through his bedroom window.